Welcome back to the Nash Potatoes Outdoor Show. Today I'm going to make another batch of chicken jerky with some delicious yet simple ingredients. I'm actually making it for my brother's birthday. This is going to be a fun video. Let's get it going. Alright, first thing we're going to do is take our chicken out of the refrigerator. I've got 5 pounds of chicken breasts and I'm going to put it in the freezer for about 3.5 hours. Alright, the ingredients we're using for this marinade, we've got soy sauce, Worcestershire sauce, some honey, some sriracha sauce, some liquid smoke, and pink Himalayan sea salt. Alright, 15 ounces of soy sauce. We're going to put the whole bottle in there. The cake pan I'm using is one of the bigger cake pans. You're going to want to get one of these. It's 14.5 inches by 11 inches by 2 inches. It fits 5 pounds of chicken just about perfectly. Next up, we've got the whole bottle of Worcestershire sauce, 10 ounces. All right, next up we are going to do a cup of honey. So you won't be able to get all of it out. So what I did is I actually popped it in the microwave for about 10 seconds and it liquefies pretty quickly and you'll be able to get the rest of it out of there. So that was 1 cup of honey. Next up, we're going to do the chili garlic sauce, also known as sriracha. There currently is a supply shortage on that. The standard brand was not at the grocery store, so this is a different brand I'm not familiar with. But regardless, go ahead and pop that in, 2/3 of a cup. Next up, we're going to do a 1/3 cup of liquid smoke. I chose the hickory flavor. And finally, we're going to do 1 tablespoon of sea salt. A lot of recipes call for curing salt, and I'm not so much familiar with curing salt. I know it's got some odd ingredients in it that I don't feel comfortable using. Nitrite, I think it's called. So I just put the sea salt in there, helps kill the bacteria, adds a little bit of flavor. I really like it. All right, now I'm going to stir it up. And what I'm noticing is that honey is not mixing in immediately. So I was a little bit concerned about that, but as you'll see in the middle of the video, once you pop it into the refrigerator, that honey does dissolve fairly quickly. All right, now the chicken, as I mentioned, was in the freezer for 3.5 hours. So I'm gonna pull this out and start to slice it up. What you really wanna do is remove the fat, and you're gonna want a really sharp knife, the biggest, sharpest knife that you have. So this first piece that I cut here, I'll show you how to remove the fat. Just get the big chunks off and throw them to the side. They're no good. So what you're aiming for is you want to cut it into an 1/8 of an inch slice. It's quite hard to do. So what you really want to aim for in reality is less than 1/4 of an inch. And this first piece is going to be quite awkward. So I'll speed it up because by the time I got to the last slice or the last piece of chicken, it went quite a bit smoother. Yeah, so this is my final piece of chicken breast. Like I said, it's a little bit awkward at first, but you do get better at it as you go along. And freezing the chicken helps you to slice it more thinly. As I mentioned, you're aiming for an 1/8 of an inch, but anything less than 1/4 of an inch is going to be sufficient. So with this piece, I was starting to get a little bit better, cutting them nice and thin. And to be honest with you, the trickiest part is the very last portion of the chicken breast where you don't have much to hang on to. And I did kind of come up with a trick for that I wanted to mention. So as you can see, that's pretty close to an 1/8 of an inch. And as you can see as well, that large cake pan really comes in handy. So I'm actually going to marinate this chicken for 3 days. I would say at minimum, marinate it for 2 days, but I had enough time to go an extra day, and so I spent the money in the ingredients and I want to get all that flavor into the chicken as much as possible. Okay, so as you get to the end, it does get challenging. That part there isn't so bad. But once you get to this last cut here, what I did was kind of turned it 90 degrees, that piece there, and then squish it down, and then bring your knife forward, grab the sides and just get one slice to the back, score it a little bit, and then you can get your knife in there and kind of finish the cut. You'll find out what works for you, but that seemed to work for me. All right. That's 5 pounds of chicken breast, and what I discovered is that 5 pounds of chicken breast will yield about 1.8 pounds of jerky. So I wanted to push the chicken down into that marinade. I really like this recipe. I did a taste test at the end of the video with my parents, and we'll tell you how good it was. But with the sweetness and the liquid smoke and the soy sauce and the chili garlic sauce, it's just a great combination. All right, now we're going to want to pop some aluminum foil on this bad boy. The aluminum foil barely fits because that is an extra large cake pan. But just pop that on there, and then we're going to throw it in the refrigerator for, as I mentioned, 2 to 3 days. I definitely did not want to spill it on camera. That would have been a blooper reel for sure. All right, so as I mentioned, I wasn't sure that honey was gonna blend in with that marinade, but after 2 days, I opened it up because I was gonna rotate the chicken from top to bottom. But what I found out is that that honey was thoroughly mixed into that marinade, so I didn't even do much other than just make sure that everything was down into the marinade. All right, now we're gonna put it on the dehydrator. This is after 3 days in the refrigerator. First thing you wanna do is just kind of dry it off really quickly. You don't have to be real thorough about this, but you just don't want those juices dripping down into your dehydrator because it is kind of a pain to clean up. So I quickly just throw it down onto a paper towel for 30 seconds or so, and then begin to throw it onto the dehydrator. So this is my second batch using this dehydrator, and what I learned is that that chicken fairly quickly shrivels up. So you can actually stuff it you can really pack it in to each shelf. You don't have to be worrying about saving space because it shrivels up so quickly. So I'm going to pack it as tight as I can. And you just go on one shelf at a time. It takes a little bit of time, but the finished product is worthwhile. I was at the grocery store the other day, and they sell jerky in such small quantities anymore that if you do the math on it, you're actually paying $40 per pound for jerky at the store. So I really enjoy this process, and the finished product is amazing. So, all right, so as I said, pack that shelf as tight as you can. Obviously, only single layer would be acceptable. You wouldn't want to put chicken on top of chicken, but it shrivels up so quickly. It's a little bit of a challenging sometimes to get those last few pieces in there, but almost like a puzzle. I know I've mentioned this before as well, but it's hard to get your hands on a food dehydrator anymore. Everybody's using these air fryers. So if you want to buy a dehydrator, you're going to have to go on to Amazon and purchase one there because I couldn't find them in the stores anywhere. So I'm going to speed up this portion of the video a little bit. I actually did a product review on this dehydrator. I love this dehydrator. You'll have to look back at my previous videos if you want to see a little bit more information about it. So as I mentioned, just fill up these shelves. I think I only needed, did I use 3 shelves? Or no, I used 4 shelves. I didn't need the 5th shelf because I packed it so tightly. So All right, wrapping up this portion. And then we're gonna pop the lid on. And so what I decided to do was go 15 hours at 131 degrees. And then what I discovered is that after 15 hours, 80% of my jerky was dehydrated. What wasn't completely dehydrated was the thicker pieces. So I ended up taking the thicker pieces and running them for an extra 2 hours. Okay, so one thing you're gonna wanna do is after about 4 or 5 hours, you're gonna wanna rotate the trays because the trays on the bottom are closer to the heat source and will cook quite a bit faster. So what you wanna do is put the top tray on the bottom and the bottom tray on the top. So that's the top tray that I'm putting on the bottom, and then just go one at a time. And it's a good idea to do this every 4 or 5 hours. Otherwise, the pieces at the bottom will be way too crispy. So then I just pop the lid back on and finish running that cycle. And then after 15 hours, what I realized was that the thicker pieces, as I mentioned, were not quite done. And how you know whether or not it's done is the piece will more or less break in half when you do the bend test. So you can see that's kind of still flexible there. I'll show you a piece that's done here in a second. And I think this piece as well was not quite there, almost there. You don't want it to break in half. You just want it to kind of crack in half, and then the strands will still be there. I think this piece turned out perfect. I'll show you. Just like that. That's what you're looking for right there. That piece is perfect. So what I did is I went through and took the done pieces off, ran the bigger pieces for, there's another good piece there, for about 2 hours, and the batch turned out pretty good. Yeah, you'll kind of get a feel for what's done and what's not done. I did want to show you what happens if you don't get all the fat trimmed off your chicken. This is what happens. It kind of melts in the dehydrator, and it's not that appealing, although it is still quite flavorful, so be careful and make sure you get all the fat trimmed off. All right, so I've got my parents here for the official taste test. First of all, I wanted to mention a couple of things. I dehydrated 5 pounds of chicken jerky, this bag right here, which comes out to 1.8 pounds after it's been dehydrated. And I recently did the math on beef jerky in the grocery lanes at Meijer. It comes down to about $40 per pound. So I've got about $75 worth of beef jerky right here. I did want to show you, this batch turned out much better than my first batch. I kind of wanted to show you what the center should look like right there. It breaks in half quite easily. Let me break it for you real quick. That's how you can tell that it's done, when you do the bend test and break it in half and you get those strands like that. But anyway, so this is a recipe I've never tried before. I've got my mom and dad here. We're going to give it a little taste. Dad, how about you go first?
All right.
My dad's the big meat guy, always eating burgers and steaks.
Very good.
So the first recipe, some of you know, was the Guamanian style recipe. Mom, get in here a little closer. The Guamanian style recipe, which is really heavy in the soy sauce. This has soy sauce, Worcestershire sauce, honey, and chili garlic sauce. Go ahead, Mom. Dad, how do you compare it to the Guamanian style? Do you taste any of the spiciness or the sweetness?
I do taste the sweetness in it, yeah.
Very, very good.
Very good.
Can I have more? Yummy. You did great.
So this morning I woke up and the dehydrator was done. It went for 15 hours. I had to take the thicker pieces and run them for an additional 2 hours because they weren't quite done yet. Ooh, I do taste some of the spice.
Yeah.
No,
Do you taste any of the honey in there?
Mm-hmm. I do.
Really?
I do too.
So halfway through the batch, I went to flip the chicken because I was afraid that the honey wasn't going to actually emulsify into the marinade. But when I got into the batch halfway through, the honey was clearly mixed all the way through the marinade. So,
I have to say
I don't taste it. I
is
do
good.
taste a little bit of the sweetness in the soy sauce and Worcestershire. That's delicious.
Very
Dad, give it a rating on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being best.
9.5.
And what would you give the Guamanian style?
I like the Guamanian style. 10.
10. Mom, how about you?
10
On this one?
and 10.
On Guamanian. So I love the Guamanian style. For me, the Guamanian was so heavy on the soy sauce that I think it lacked a little bit of character, I guess. Oh, Butch is in. Can we get Butch in the camera real quick? Butch, what's up, baby?
Hey,
got him?
all right. He's got to be in the camera too.
So in my mind, the Guamanian style lacked a little bit of depth in the flavor. What I love about this new recipe is it has the soy sauce flavor and it has the spiciness and a little bit of sweetness. So I like them about equally, but
Yeah.
Very good.
9 or 10 for both of them. But
Yep.
anyway, that's all we've got for you today. This is actually chicken jerky for my younger brother's birthday. We snatched a few slices before we handed it off to him.
Don't tell him.
That's all I've got for you today. Thanks for watching the Nash Potatoes Outdoor Show. Please
See ya.
subscribe to my YouTube channel. Mom, we'll see you
Next time.